All right. All right. All right. All right, people. We're here once again. All right. Here we are once again. Going to have a glorious time. I'm hoping that you have been blessed by the prior episodes. So I'd like to tell you, I'm Dr. Timothy Hart, and we are here, and we're going to continue on the series on this little mini class, kind of, sort of, The Quest to Be the Best, Part 6. Now, I want you to be blessed today by this, and I'm really hoping that you are getting something out of this, because it's really important. It's really important that you be blessed, because we're living in a time when many of us haven't had the opportunity to get a lot of things that we need in order to be what we need to be. Our communities are in trouble. I'm going to say that again. Our communities are in trouble. And the reason they're in trouble is because there is a serious deficit in the leadership area. If we, like the song says, if we ever needed the Lord before, we certainly need him now. Certainly need him now. So if you have your book handy, let's go. If you don't have it, you can go here and get it. It is the 33 Laws of War, 33 Strategies of War. All right. So let us get moving. Yesterday, we left off with the story of Miyamoto. Miyamoto. Miyamoto Musashi, who was, according to history, the greatest swordsman that ever lived. And he, of course, was the kind of guy who, as a young man, see, I've read the Book of the Five Rings. I've read it. And as a result of reading it, what I found interesting was this, is that he had to come to the realization very young he had to come to the realization really young that he was not going to be able to survive had he not improved his skills. Y'all have to listen to what I'm saying. He realized, as many great people have realized, that their success is determined by their ability to protect themselves. If you're not willing to protect yourself, then everything you've ever done, anything you've ever accomplished, will stop that very day that they take you out. Especially in the area of education, in the area of defense, in the area of law. There is an inherent expectation. And that expectation is really simple. Are you listening? That expectation is really simple. And it's the expectation that you perform in a manner indicative of skill set, your intellectual skill set. However, we're going to understand that in some cases, your education doesn't mean anything because you can get a degree as long as you do the homework. But that does not say you're proficient. So we left off with Napoleon Bonaparte. It says anyone can plan a campaign, but few people are capable of waging war. Because only a true military genius can handle the development circumstances. This is what I'm saying. From theory to application, that's where many people fall short. With the interpretation of this story. At first, when I started this, I was thinking about taking select excerpts. But there is so much meat here that I can't, in good conscience, I couldn't just take pieces. I want to give you the whole thing. All right? Is that all right? Okay. Miyamoto Musashi, author of the Book of Five Rings, won all his duels for one reason. In each instance, he adapted his strategy to the opponent and to the circumstances of the moment. Once Matsushiro, he decided with Matsushiro, he decided it was time to arrive early, in which he hadn't done in previous fights. Victory against superior numbers depended on surprise. Are you listening? Let me put that down. Victory against superior numbers depended on surprise. And you know what? We can apply that today. Victory against superior numbers depends on your surprise. The level of surprise that you spring upon the enemy is going to determine the level of victory, especially if he had not prepared. Y'all, I hope you're listening. So he leaped up when his opponents lay down. Then once he had killed their leader, are you listening? Once he had killed their leader, he set himself at an angle that invited them to charge at him instead of surrounding him. Which would have been much more dangerous for him. With Baiken, he was simply a matter of using two swords and then crowding his space, giving him no time to react intelligently. Listen here, they're giving you the strategy. Crowding his space, giving him no time to react intelligently to his novelty. In other words, which is what he was good at. Okay? He needed that space in order to launch his attack. He had that long sword. With Ganryu, he set out to infuriate and humiliate his haughty opponent. The wooden sword, the nonchalant attitude, the dirty towel headband, the enigmatic remark, and charged at the eyes. Musashi's opponents depended on brilliant technique, flashy swords, and unorthodox weapons. That is the same as fighting the last war. Instead of depending on the moment, responding to the moment, they relied on training, technology, and what had worked before. Listen here, people. I want you to glean and learn from these. Glean and learn from these, because in a mind's eye, when you sit back and you start to think about all of the things that has happened to you in your life, you realize that much of it came by surprise. Much of it came by surprise. And when you begin to understand that the enemy is not going to let you know he's coming, he's not going to tell you what his weapons are he's going to use, He's not going to tell you his avenue of attack. He's not going to tell you any of that. He's not going to tell you any of that. Okay? Welcome to the Quest to Be the Best, Part 6. We're talking about Miyamoto Musashi and the idea of fighting the last war. And once you grab onto some of these concepts, you'll begin to understand the motive, the rationale, and the reason. Okay? We're in a tough spot. We're in a real tough spot. Okay? We can't afford to let the enemy get advantage of us. But I tell you what I'm really surprised about. I'm surprised about the attitude of Christians, so-called. I'm really surprised at that because as I encounter them from day to day, I realize how little of the Word of God they actually use. I know somebody's not going to like that I said that, but it's too bad. Okay? When you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, I got chest pains. He does his tests, and he gives you what his tests tell you, the result of his tests. And you don't have to accept it or reject it. It is what it is. If we're going to win this war, we're going to have to learn how to accept the truth. Are you listening? Now, we were talking about Musashi, and it says Musashi's opponents depended on brilliant technique, flashy swords, and unorthodox weapons. That is the same as fighting the last war. In other words, the war before. Instead of responding to the moment, they relied on training, technology, and what had worked before. Musashi, who grasped the essence of strategy when he was still very young, turned their rigidity into their downfall. Are you hearing that? See? You stuck in your ways, plan on falling. Okay? I don't even have to talk about the current political climate. I don't even have to talk about that right now. I don't have to. You see what it is. Okay? All of those people who were so stuck on their party and who were so stuck on that thing, now they got what they want and nobody is saying anything. You know why they're saying nothing? They got their foot in their mouth. Kind of hard to talk with your foot in your mouth. All those people who hated Trump so badly. Listen here. This is a battle strategy, people. You don't think they all work together? Come on now. Okay? You don't think they all work together? Well, they do. They all work together. And so to get you to fighting against each other and fighting against this thing and fighting against that thing, the subversion is real. Okay? His first thought, listen to Musashi, this is his story. His first thought was of the gambit that would take his particular opponent most by surprise. Then he would anchor himself in the moment, having set his opponent off balance with something unexpected. He would watch carefully and then respond with another action, usually improvised, that would turn mere disequilibrium into defeat and death. Thunder and wind, the image of duration. Thus the superior man stands firm and does not change his direction. Thunder rolls and the wind blows. Both are examples of extreme mobility and are so seemingly the very opposite of duration. But the laws governing their appearance and subsistence, their coming and their going, endure. And in the same way, the independence of the superior man is not based on rigidity and immobility of character. He always keeps abreast of the time and changes it. When what endures is the unswerving directive, the inner law of his being, which determines all of his actions. Now, if you are into a philosophy, listen here, and I want to say this so that if you're listening and if you care, that there's a reason why God gave you two hands and two eyes. When you breathe, there are two nostrils and two pockets where the air goes into called sinuses. When he only gave you one mouth. Okay? See, because you need to take in more than you put out. Are you listening? You need to take in more than you're putting out. Most people are putting out more than they're taking in. And so we have a real problem with the world that we live in because we got people like that. All smoke. Just all air, right? So it would be to your advantage to at least glance into other philosophies. Not that you can turn them into gods, like at the Mount of Transfiguration. You don't need to turn them into God, but remember, all truth comes from God. All truth. It doesn't matter what the receptacle was. Listen here. I want to give you an example of a foolish person, okay, dying by the river. Are you ready for this? Okay. There's a man who was from Germany. Okay. And of course, he's used to drinking his water from a well. Okay. He would go out, fill up his bucket, take the bucket into the house, pour the water into a receptacle just for drinking water. He came to the United States. And when he got here, he found that where he was living, there was a river that flowed with very clean water. River. And one night he got thirsty. He got really, really thirsty, as he would, had been drinking. And so he went down to the river, and all he could think about was lowering his bucket into. All he could think about was the times when he lowered his bucket into the well. And so he never got the water. And of course, right there by the river is where he died. That's no different than what happens with us. See, we get so caught up in the system that we've been trained in, and we let somebody tell us the foolishness, or if you're listening to anything else, everything else is evil, everything else is witchcraft, everything else is of the devil. When if you research a lot of these sermons, there are people who are literally preaching the lives of secular people, literally preaching the attributes and traits of the world. Now, I'm not mad at a person who, he develops the way he develops. Whatever his goal is, I'm not debating. What I'm debating is out of the same mouth comes curse of everything. But he's the only one that can, or she's the only one that can talk about that. And me study on the different translations. Talk about moving the mouse. But anyway, read from other sources because all you need is the truth. You don't need a lifestyle. Okay, and you'll know the difference because your spirit will tell you what's true and what's not true. All right? Now, listen to this. In preparing yourself for war, you must rid yourself of myths and misconceptions. Strategy is not a question of learning a series of moves or ideas to follow like a recipe. Victory has no magic formula. Ideas are merely nutrients for the soil. They lie in your brain as possibilities. so that in the heat of the moment, they can inspire a direction, an appropriate and creative response. Let go of all fetishes. There we go. Let go of all fetishes, books, techniques, and formulas, flashy weapons, and learn to become your own strategist. Are you listening? Let go of all fetishes, books, techniques, and this is like, as you see the dashes, I hope you're reading this, it has dashes. Okay? He's going into detail what he means by fetishes. But in this day and time, yeah, you might want to add some of the other stuff because any fetish can take you off course. Are you listening? Any fetish can take you off course. Learn to become your own strategist. Thus, one's victories in battle cannot be repeated. They take their form in response to inexhaustibly changing circumstances. This is Sun Tzu. See, this is why we can't afford to be locked into the things that certain people tell us without examining it and trying to dig for the truth that would work for you. It's like I heard the thing that, there's many different ways to get to Jesus. There's many different ways to get to heaven. I heard that. People who say things like that don't understand the reality of spirituality. They don't know who Jesus is and they don't know what he is. See, listen, I got to explain this at this point so that you get it. When a person is alive, Jesus said this. He said, when a person is alive, okay, you don't have to worry about trying to figure it out. Okay? You don't have to worry about developing a teaching system because you got the teacher right there. But when that person leaves, and they're not talking to you about the developments, about the things that are coming up, what should have happened is they should have left enough in you that you can see it now for yourself. So when Jesus now first of all, let's forget about the pictures that you see up on the wall. Forget about that. Let's forget about the debates about who this person is or whatever. And if you want to make him a human, let's make him a human, but let's make it relevant. Okay? Jesus, you are a type of Jesus. Okay? You are a type. You are perpetuating and carrying on the concept of Jesus in your heart and in your conduct. This is what taking the blood and eating the flesh is all about. It is not a literal occurrence. Ain't no cannibalism, and there's no vampirism. These things are symbolic concepts. Symbolic. So if you want to follow Jesus, what are you following? You're following the truth of justice and fairness. How do we know that? Jesus came and said what? I didn't come to destroy the law of the prophets, but to what? I didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. What does that mean? That means the law still has power, and you still are required to follow it. So what's the concept? The concept is give away your carnal concepts. Give away your carnal mind and figuring out how this thing is going to be done and do the right thing. Because once you do the right thing, the law cannot touch you. Jesus, the law required a sacrifice. Okay? Any law does. Y'all heard what I said. To obey any law requires a sacrifice. What is that sacrifice? That sacrifice is the sacrifice of your own appetites, your own desires, those things you want to do as opposed to what they want you to do. Let me give you an example. If you're on the highway and the sign says 65 and you want to go 80, guess what? You got to sacrifice your desire to do 80 and go 75 and go 70. Y'all are not hearing me. Okay? There are certain physical laws. What goes up must come down. Something up in your tree, something up on your house. You may want to jump up there and get it, but guess what? There's a law. If you go up there on your ladder, okay, you better obey that law and understand and hold on and strap yourself in. Because if you don't, guess what? You'll soon be subject to that law when you end up on the ground. There are other laws as well, okay, that as a relationship consultant, this is what I help people to embrace. Because the reason you can't have a solid relationship is because of your violation of laws, your violation of rules. The first law is the rule of reciprocity, okay? The law of reciprocity. What you give comes back. It is what it is. If you're dishonest, you can't expect your partner to be honest. Okay? If you're not a loving person, you can't expect your partner to be loving. So you give love, and by giving, you open the door for receiving. That's reciprocity. All right? So, keys to warfare. In looking back on an unpleasant or disagreeable experience, the thought inevitably occurs to us. If only we had done or said X instead of Y, if we only could do it over. Many a general had lost his head in the heat of battle, and then looking back, has thought of the one tactic, the one maneuver that would have changed it all. About that. Even Prince Hohenlohe, years later, could see how he botched the retaking of Viersenhaligen. The problem, though, is not that we think of the solution only when it's too late. The problem is that we imagine that knowledge is what was lacking. If only we had known more. If only we had thought it through more thoroughly. That is precisely the wrong approach. What makes us go astray in the first place is that we are unattuned to the present moment, insensitive to the circumstances. We are listening to our own thoughts, reacting to things that happened in the past, applying theories and ideas that digested long ago, but that have nothing to do with our predicament in the present. More books, theories, and thinking only make the problem worse. My policy is to have no policy. This was Abraham Lincoln's. My policy is to have no policy. Now, I want you to get this. We're in trouble right now because of this very principle right here. The very idea that we keep trying to use old stuff to accomplish the new stuff. No, you got to dig inside the new situation, and it provides the answers. As a martial artist, as a minister, as a musician, all of those things that are on the creative side, warfare starts on the creative side, but it gleans a lot from the logic. Are you listening to what I'm saying? We take logic and we create with it. So martial arts is more creativity than art form. Are you listening? It is more creativity than laws and rules, even though the laws and rules help us to formulate a system designed to protect us. So this is what I'm saying needs to happen. If the pathology is that the root is producing the fruit, then we need to go at the root and stop trying to cut down limbs. Hello? Because you cut down a limb, guess what? You're not going to kill the tree. You only kill the tree by taking out the roots. All you do is make it so it can't produce fruit, but it's still a tree. It's still a tree. And then you have to destroy all the fruit. I'm reminded of the taproot in some of the trees in my hometown. There are some trees that have been standing in front of houses longer than the house been there. And those roots are down deep in the ground and they have started to spread. And you can tell the result of that by the trees that grow on the same side of the street. And in the yard where the house is. You can tell it. So what I'm saying here is that we don't necessarily have to do a completely new thing, but we have to understand that what we're doing needs to be adaptive and it needs to change based on the situation and the circumstance. Okay? Church is about done. It's going to be an entertainment venue real soon. Okay? You want a good concert and some good feel good, go to church on Sunday morning. Okay? Any church that's daring to teach the truth, you're asking to only have two or three members. Okay? Or if you mess around and catch somebody who's just stuck in their way and just they've been going there forever, this is my mama's church, my grandmama's church, our whole family been going to this church. You're gonna find if you go into the office, you're gonna find the reason they staying at that church. But their name is on their name is on the official roll. You don't believe me, you go check it out for yourself. A whole lot of people staying at the church because they trustees. A whole lot of them staying at the church because they're board members. A whole lot of them because they're major. They give people who give a lot of money to the church. Trust me on that. But people do what they want anyway. So guess what? Let's go back to the read. Understand, the greatest generals, the most creative strategists, stand out not because they have more knowledge, but because they are able, when necessary, to drop their preconceived notions and focus intensely on the present moment. That is how creativity is sparked and opportunities are seized. I heard that. Knowledge, experience, and theory have limitations. No amount of thinking in advance can prepare you for the chaos of life. For the infinite possibilities of the moment, the great philosopher of war, Karl von Clausewitz, called this friction. The difference between our plans and what actually happens. Since friction is inevitable, our minds have to be capable of keeping up with change and adapting to the unexpected. The better we can adapt our thoughts to changing circumstances, the more realistic our responses will be, the more we will lose ourselves in predigested theories and past experiences, the more inappropriate and delusional our response. I'm going to read that again. Okay? The better we can adapt our thoughts to changing circumstances, the more realistic our responses to them will be. The more we lose ourselves in predigested theories and past experiences, the more inappropriate and delusional our response. It can be valuable to analyze what went wrong in the past, but it is far more important to develop the capacity to think in the moment. In that way, you will make far fewer mistakes to analyze. If you put an empty gourd on the water and touch it, it will slip to one side. No matter how hard you try, it won't stay in one spot. The mind of someone who has reached the ultimate state does not stay with anything, even for a second. It's like an empty gourd on the water that is pushed around. Okay? Think of the mind as a river. The faster it flows, the better it keeps up with the present and responds to change. The faster it flows, also the more it refreshes itself and the greater its energy. Obsessional thoughts, past experiences, whether traumas or successes, and preconceived notions are like boulders or mud in the river, settling and hardening there. And damming it up. The river stops moving, stagnation sets in. You must wage constant war on this tendency in the mind. first step is simply to be aware of the process and of the need to fight it. The second is to adopt a few tactics that might help you to restore the mind's natural flow. Okay? Now, I want you to understand for a moment. This is my desire for you. If you're if you're sitting at home when you're watching this, or you're riding down the street and listening to it, or whatever you're doing at this moment when you're watching this, I want you to think about, try to go back in your mind and pick out 4 things that you have done to improve your existence. And when you write those 4 things down, do it. Make a note, make it a notebook. Get yourself a notebook. Okay, write those 4 things down. Okay, the last 4 things you've done to improve your existence, and write down the thing, and then leave about 4 or 5 lines space in between each. And then, and for every act, I want you to write down what you've actually done to accomplish that. Where? Let me give you a kind of a taste. I recently had the opportunity to have food. Okay, and I have an aversion to okra, so that meant the gumbo was out. Because you know the thing about gumbo, it has okra in it. The taste of it is not a problem, but it's just the texture and the substance. So as I was eating it, I could taste the okra. I could taste it. So immediately I'm searching through the bowl trying to find the pieces of okra. And it didn't happen. Because what the person did, because apparently they didn't like okra. They didn't like the texture either. But they still needed the flavor, because that's what okra provide, the flavor. So what they done was they took the okra and they boiled it. They boiled it and they boiled it and they reduced to a concentrate. And they used that to flavor the gumbo. That's awesome stuff, right? But the point I'm trying to make is, because I tasted it, I just automatically assumed that there was okra in there. So I'm digging, because I don't want to have this aversion. So everything has a source and a rationale and reason. Had I not had that experience, I wouldn't. I don't know anything about. I don't know much about Cajun food. All I know is what I was shown, and what I was shown is that you put okra in there. I didn't know that there was any other alternative. Even though common sense probably should have said, "Oh yeah, there's another way to." So as you do that, that's the way you want to think. You want to think, okay, so where did I get the idea that this is acceptable? Where did I get who told me this? And it takes some thought. It's not something that you're just going to be able to do, sit down and write it. But I want you to do this, because if we're going to improve as a people, you're going to have to understand that much of the stuff you're doing is based on somebody else telling you. There's no real fact behind it, because it was their experience and not yours. We're still having trouble in relationships. Why? Because of the mess that's been told to us. And we operate in that mess. I don't see how you can, like I say, whatever method of righteousness is you. How can you follow what you say is God, and every single I've not seen one book, even listen here, even the Satan's Bible talks about relationships, and it talks about the subservience of women to men. Even the devil's talking about that. So if the devil's talking, it must be a pretty ubiquitous concept. In other words, universal. So what makes you think, women, that you not be submissive and be successful when everybody? This is a consensus, people. Even those in matriarchal societies, they realize that they need to submit to the men, even though they're in charge. How do you be in charge and have to submit? Why? Because they understand the intrinsic nature and the value of men within the framework of their system. Why we keep getting fired from? We keep getting fired from because we got a bunch of people, okay, who either don't know the value of the work, don't want to do what they're told. Then there's conversely, we got employers that treat people like garbage, don't want to pay them anything, want people to basically, if their way, it would be slavery time. You would be working for them, comes can't see morning, they can't see night, and you wouldn't get nothing out of it but a bowl of fat back and some farina. Are you listening to me? We got people who still, especially in security. It is crazy. It is nuts. You standing out there in front of somebody else's business trying to keep trouble out, and they want to give you, and you're not even making, you're just slightly above minimum wage. What is that? I did some bodyguard, got top out. You heard me? Because the safety was important. I was protecting people. But even now, you protected, if as a security officer protecting multi-million-dollar properties, all your worth is $9 to $14 an hour. And if you get a gun on your hip, which costs you another $300, plus you got to buy a weapon, then you got to get your license, which you got to pay for. And they only want to pay you $13, $14 an hour after all of that. Is there a drug under somebody's table they breathing in? Did somebody pump something into your ventilation system? Well, wait a minute. You think we're going through? What about restaurant workers? What about warehouse workers? Somebody got to be listening to me out there. We got to do something different. Okay? So I'm reading this because we need some mental strategies. People need to change the way they think. Because if you don't start thinking different about people, you're going to find that in your hour of need, you're not going to have anybody. Have an arsenal, but you can only fire one weapon at a time. Even if you got two of them, you can only fire one. This is one weapon technically. Somebody got to be listening. We are classic dysfunction because people don't know the value of others. And trust me, I love beautiful things. Trust me on that. Okay. And I particularly like the human body. If there's a guy I see working out, sometimes I watch guys work out, and it's because I see the work they're putting in, and it's respectable and honorable for a man to want to be strong. Why? To me, that's another soldier. If I have to link up, I don't have to worry about him strength wise. You know, Women are made to be beautiful so that they'll be attractive. Don't get twisted. It ain't for nothing else. It ain't for nothing else. Women, the anatomical parts of a woman are designed to complement a man. It's all about biology, people. And the sociology is nice, but the biology got to come first. You can have a beautiful woman and she not be able to produce. Okay, and as we know, there are some people that are starshine material, got a brain that got a brain like this cup. Y'all see that, right? Ain't got the sense. Ain't got the sense of their birthday. So don't get this thing twisted. We got to start going back down to basic truth. And what's the basic truth? The basic truth is it's all about the biology, people. It's all about the biology. All of this other stuff that's going on, that's gravy. Theology came down to biology. It doesn't care about it doesn't matter about any other this other stuff. You can talk about the politics all day long. Doesn't matter. It's about the biology. Okay? Why? Because inside the biology is the theology. Okay? We need to get that straight. Because if we don't learn how to appreciate the truth of people, we'll never be able to get truth from people. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Because right now, we beat each other up over the dumbest stuff because we don't realize that everybody has a role to play in this entire thing. Everybody. There's not one person. Listen here. You think that guy sitting there on the corner? You think that guy that's laying there got the grocery cart full of stuff? You don't think he has value? You're a fool. Don't listen. If you don't think, listen, that person who's up there, who's making those millions and millions of dollars, listen here. He's responsible for a lot of money circulating through the system. You don't think he's valuable? He knows he's valuable. He knows he's valuable, and he knows that at some point you're going to want to be valuable in the same manner he got valuable. So guess what? He can start making money on you by trying to teach you how to get what you think you're going to get from being like him. Just be you. Just be you. I have never in my life, and I'm not that old, but I'm old enough. I'm old enough that I don't have the idiosyncrasies that a lot of younger guys do, and my care crystal is pretty much eroded. I might have to get it replaced. Thank you, Jesus. I might have to get it replaced. But right now, guess what? I'm dealing with trying to get the truth, trying to live it, trying to get it out. And if we don't do something different, guess what? Dark Americans, you look over at your friend, look over at your relative, look over at your partner, look over at your business associate. You might not see them soon. You might not see them soon. Because if you value your family, let me tell you what happens when you value your family. You send out the alarm. Listen here, we need to get together and we need to pull this thing together, tighten it down, batten down the hatches. Because this thing is coming, y'all, and we don't want to be, I don't want you to be hurt. I don't want you to be subject. I don't want you to be in trouble. Come on over here. But dark Americans don't trust each other. Y'all not listening. You always think somebody's trying to get something over on you. Guess what? You ain't got nothing to get. Your place is your place. My place is my place. And so if I don't ever say a word to you, you got a responsibility. Are you hearing me what I'm saying? There's no excuse for bad behavior. Can't nobody make you do anything. The only way they can make you do something is you not on your job. Hello? You're not on your job. If you on your job, you're doing what you're supposed to. No, nobody can make you anything other than what you want to be. A long time ago, oh, you made me mad. No, you didn't make me mad. I just disagree with what you done. But it's just virtually impossible. So remember, okay, if you want to read this book, you can get it from PDF Drive. It is the 33 Strategies of War. Okay, it is the 33 Strategies of War. We're going to stop it right there. If you have any questions, if you want to join in the discussion, send me an email. Okay, you can also see this on YouTube. Okay, you can see this on YouTube. I want to be able to bless some people in a minute. So if you want to contribute in support of this show, just let me know, and you can send your cash donations to our Cash App. Okay. Also, I have opportunities for advertisement. So if you want to, I have a podcast. You want to support the podcast, send me an email or go to anchor.com or anchor.tv. What is it? Anchor.fm. Okay. And you'll see me. I am Dr. Connexpert on Anchor. So, with all that being said, it's been real today. We're going to wrap it up right there. And we want you all to have a great day and to enjoy the rest of this day. All right? You all have a great